Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we find ourselves living in. So, I've done a short series, 3 cases, UK unsolved cases, of 3 women or girls, because the case that I'm going to cover today is only 13, this girl, when she disappeared and was later found murdered. But I did the case of Nicola Payne, who was 30 when she disappeared in Basildon, Essex. Nicola Ray. I did the case of Nicola Payne, who was only 18 and only just a mum when she disappeared. Now, today I'm going to cover the case of Lindsay Rimer. And this is her up in the right-hand side here. And she's who we're going to talk about today and see if it can jog anybody's memory about what might have happened to Lindsay. Well, we know what happened to her. She was murdered brutally, but we don't know how this event transpired. She was born on the 17th of February 1981, and she lived with her parents. Also, her older brother Daniel, her older sister Kate, and her younger sister Juliet, in a house on Cambridge Street in the town of Hebden Bridge. Let's have a look at Hebden Bridge. So, let me just share it. Hebden Bridge is in Yorkshire. We've been to Yorkshire a few times with cases, haven't we? And Hebden Bridge is a very nice place, pretty old sort of village. Here it is, not massively far from Leeds, I suppose, is the next nearest big city. Rochdale, not that far from Manchester either, here in Yorkshire. Let me just find and this is where Lindsay lived with her family. And this, unfortunately, as well, is where she died. So, and this area that Lindsay lived and died was made famous by the excellent TV series Happy Valley with Sarah Lancashire, which I'm sure a lot of you might remember. If you haven't watched this series, I think there's a couple of different seasons. I would highly recommend it. You can probably find it on Netflix or somewhere like that. Very good series with Sarah Lancashire, and will give you a real insight into the area of Hebden Bridge. Now, Lindsay was described by her mother Geri as a well-behaved, conscientious and happy kid, a girl so well organised and efficient that her family nicknamed her Saffy because of her similarity in her actions to the character in Absolutely Fabulous, Eddys' daughter, Saffy. If you've ever watched Absolutely Fabulous, these are the 2 friends growing old disgracefully, Eddie and Patsy. And Saffy was Eddie's daughter, who was very well organised and she was more like the parent than her mother, played by Jennifer Saunders and, of course, Joanna Lumley there. Very good series, very good comedic series, but very true, a lot of true observations in it as well. And I just want to show you a picture of Lindsay's mum. So this is Lindsay with her mum when she was a little girl. And that's her mum, Geri. Now, it appears that she was a good and popular student in Year 9 at the local Calder High School. She wanted to go to university. She'd recently taken on a paper round. Now, that's a very common thing in those days. I had a paper round. It was an absolute disaster. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't keep track of the numbers. Now that I know my problem with numbers, I understand it better. So, but a lot of young boys and girls, that's how they earn a bit of extra money. Maybe they still do. I don't know. Do people still do paper rounds now? Do people even have papers delivered now? Would it be considered dangerous now for a child to walk around delivering papers? I don't know, but it is dangerous really when you think about it. I just remember on my paper round getting completely lost, mixed up, and just sitting down on the pavement, sobbing, crying. And then my brother appeared and sort of saved me. I mean, I was completely lost and I didn't know who was delivering what paper to. It was awful. So it wasn't a good thing for me. But there's lots of people not so dyslexic with numbers as me. Yeah, every Saturday morning you do paper round, earn a little bit of extra money. So it was a common way for young people to earn some money before they were able to get what you'd call a proper job. Anyway, Lindsay was last seen on the 7th of November 1994 at around about 10 o'clock in the evening, buying, of all things, a box of cornflakes at her local Spar. She then vanished into the night. Now I'm going to just show you the CCTV that was released. Now, of course, this was a time where there wasn't so much CCTV. You know, there was some. This is in the shop. This CCTV that we're going to look at, this was in the shop. Let's see. On that one, yeah. So this is the very last sighting of Lindsay. Go back to the beginning, just 5 seconds that. Yeah, she bought her cornflakes, she paid, and she went. And although I've just heard this morning, actually watching a Crime Watch program that we're going to see later, apparently she was thought to have been seen after that on the street. So, but this is the last recorded sighting of Lindsay. Because as I say, CCTV just was not as common as it is now. So what happened to Lindsay? It would be a year of hell, uncertainty for her family before her body was finally found, weighted down in the Rochdale Canal outside the town, and she had been strangled. Let's have a look at that. Have a look at where she was found and the man who found her. On this BBC. So this guy is Andy Glover. He was a canal worker at the time. He found Lindsay's body just purely by accident. He knew it was her straight away, he said, because she had that sort of, well, you can see it on the photo there, just a few strands of hair, curly strands of hair coming down as a fringe, and he saw that on her face. So let's have a look what he had to say when he talked about it. Andy Glover from Mytholmoroyd was checking for debris when he spotted something in the water. He said, we thought that it was a sheep. As we pulled it towards us, the body rolled in the water. There was no mistaking who it was. We saw the strands of hair on her face, and we knew we had found Lindsay Rimer. So this is Andy here. And then it just goes on to talk about her going missing, but we've talked about that already. So what do you think happened to Lindsay? We're going to look at some of the possibilities. We're going to look at some of the suspects. We're going to look at some things that people had to say about this case. So let's chat. Her death was established as a murder then. When she first went missing, it wasn't though. The police seemed to think that maybe she'd run away, as they often do, 13-year-old girl. But to this day, no one has been held accountable for this young girl's death, for the removal of this young girl from the world, and also the theft of her future. Now, sometime earlier, Lindsay, at one point in their married lives, Lindsay's parents had separated after having some financial problems. And Lindsay, her brother Daniel and her father Colin lived separately from the rest of the family for a while in caravans at Lower Roughhead Farm in Hebden Bridge. And so for 2 years, Lindsay and Daniel shared one caravan, and Colin lived in another at the farm. Now, apparently, Lindsay didn't really like that. She missed her friends while she was living at the farm, and she was relieved when eventually her parents reconciled. And by the time she disappeared in November 1994, the whole family was once again living together. So on that evening of the 7th of November 1994, Lindsay was at home with her dad and 2 of her siblings. And for some reason, maybe for an evening snack or maybe because she wanted the cornflakes for the next morning, does seem to be late for a 13-year-old to go out alone at 10 p.m. Lindsay left the house to go and buy a packet of cornflakes at her local Spar. Now, her father, Colin, let's have a look at a photo of her father. He was in the house at the time. This is a mum and dad. So this is Colin. He was in the house at the time, but her mum wasn't. But she did see her mum on the way to the spa. I'm going to tell you about that in a moment. But Colin was in the house, apparently, but he was talking on the telephone at the time when she left. So they did not exchange any goodbyes, which is very sad, isn't it? Anyway, on the way to the shop, Lindsay visited the Trades Club in Home Street, and that's where she saw her mum, Geri, who was out having a drink with a friend. Lindsay refused her mum's offer to buy her a Coke, and she left to continue her journey to the shop. So it's sad, isn't it? If only she would have accepted her mum's offer of a Coke, maybe Lindsay would still be with us today. But anyway, you can't change these things, unfortunately. So we saw the CCTV at the Spar supermarket on Crown Street, which captured Lindsay buying a packet of cornflakes at 10:22 p.m. And this is the last footage of Lindsay alive. She appears to be acting normally. There's no hint of any concern. She literally just walks in, buys her cornflakes, has probably just a polite exchange with the cashier, and off she goes. She's not carrying anything. She has no bag, from what we can see in that footage. All she has is the packet of cornflakes she set out to buy. She never made it home. Now, unfortunately, this went unnoticed till the next morning, because when her mum got in, she just presumed Lindsay was in bed. She left her stuff out for school the next morning as usual, and presumably her father the same, just assumed that Lindsay had come home. So Geri describes it as the mistake of her life by not checking that Lindsay had returned when she got home. She probably presumed she was in bed. So Colin had been on the phone from, it says here, from 9:45 to 10:20, and he had not been aware of his daughter's return, a failure to return. So the alarm then was not raised because of that until the following morning, the 8th of November, and it was the newsagent who phoned the family to say that Lindsay had not turned up for a morning paper round. So she must have done a paper round every day then, I presume. You know, you could just have it like on a Saturday, but some kids, they did the paper round before they went to school. And it sounds like that's what Lindsay was doing. Anyway, so it was the newsagent that actually raised the alarm because she did not turn up for a delivery round. So the family went to the police, and despite the fact they were telling the police, and friends were telling the police, Lindsay was not the type of girl that would leave home, run away. Initially, the police did believe that was exactly what had happened. They speculated that she might have been unhappy at home, but there's no reason to believe that. Then it was denied by her family. However, they did set up an investigation unit, and they did make that extensive appeals, searches took place, reconstructions, but there was little useful information received as a result. And at the time, her older sister, Kate, did do a televised reconstruction. I couldn't find that anywhere, but this is Kate, this is actually an appeal that she made this year. We're going to look at that shortly. But that's her older sister, Kate. We'll also see her younger sister, I think it's Juliet, in the Crime Watch video that we're going to watch. So hundreds of people came out. Local people, you know, the community came out in force. The area was searched. Some parts of the Rochdale Canal and the River Calder were also searched, but no trace of Lindsay was found until 5 months later, in the late morning of the 12th of April 1995. And that's when her body was found by the canal workers dredging the Rawdon Mill Lock 12 of the Rochdale Canal, and we saw earlier about that. The police admitted that that particular section of canal had not been part of earlier searches. A crucial mistake. They'd failed to search upstream, apparently, from Lindsay's home. And that, of course, meant that after 5 months, I thought it was a year after actually, but 5 months, a lot of forensic evidence is lost, isn't it? Especially if her body's been put in the water. And her body had been weighed down. Now, to me, this is very key. Her body had been weighed down by a 20-pound concrete boulder. The boulder apparently having been taken from the side of the canal by the killer. So, you know, they didn't want that body to be found. I mean, the police definitely think that Lindsay was killed by somebody she knew, and I think it's no doubt she was. But first of all, how did they manage to, you know, abduct her? If it was a car that stopped to pick her up, you know, all her family said she wouldn't have got into a car with someone she didn't know. So it does make you think it is somebody probably that Lindsay knows. That's definitely what the police think. Now, there have been 2 arrests over the years, but nobody has been charged, and we don't know who those people were that were arrested. So apparently that boulder was secured to her remains by rope. though I don't, the police are not confirming this. And some people have tried to make freedom of information requests, but the police are not. They're not, because it's an ongoing investigation. That's presumably the reason. She was still wearing the same clothes she was pictured wearing in the CCTV footage. So that's probably why the police believe she was murdered that same evening. Her remains were taken to the Royal Halifax Infirmary, and the pathologist concluded that Lindsay had died due to strangulation, as the larynx was slightly flattened against the spinal column. Again, a lot of the report has been kept confidential because it's an ongoing investigation. But the police have said there was no sexual assault believed to have taken place. We don't know if she was wearing all her same clothes. They haven't released any of that. But they have said that they didn't believe any sexual assault had taken place. I think that's important, isn't it? Because for a stranger to take a girl, even someone who knows them, really, normally sex is a motive, isn't it? Let's face it, that is often the motive, probably 90% of the time is the motive. So I do think it's key that there was no sex attack. So yeah, detectives believe that she was murdered the night she disappeared, and she was already in the canal by the time she was reported missing. So they believe that she was put in the canal that very same night, then I take it. Anyway, they did investigate. They took hundreds of witness statements. They examined over 1,200 vehicles. And finally, over the years, as part of Operation Enigma, which was a national inquiry reviewing unsolved murders of over 200 women across Britain, they eliminated any link between her murder and that of others. And in 2016, they confirmed that they had managed to isolate a DNA profile that they believed to be Lindsay's killer. So then, as I say, 2 arrests were made in 2016 and 2017, but neither man was charged. So it seems likely that their DNA was compared and it didn't match. But we don't have any details yet. So in 2015, Lindsay's sister Kate spoke again about this devastating effect that Lindsay's murder had on their family. And I'm going to show that video to you now. Sorry, I just got to find it. Here she is. Now, this sister, Kate, she remembers Lindsay because she's the older sister. The younger sister really, does not remember much about Lindsay because I think she was only 1 when she went missing. But Kate does.
We miss her. We miss her so much. And everything is tainted. Every memory of her is tainted because of what happened to her, that she was murdered and her body dumped in the canal. And it's painful and hard. Every day it bleeds into everything that we do. We've lived with the consequences of this person's actions for 20 years, which is a life sentence for us. And it feels like that there's nothing will change. That this is how we have to live for the rest of our lives, not knowing what's happened, and for the killer to be walking free, whilst we every day live with the grief of what happened 20 years ago. You're filled with grief from the beginning and it doesn't go away.
Exactly. So she and the rest of her family, they're serving a life sentence, whereas the killer is just living his best life. For all we know, maybe even has killed somebody else or done something else. Have they just done this one thing their whole life? So the family are living the life sentence that the murderer should be living. They need this closure.
It doesn't get easier, but we can't lose the grief and start remembering her with love until the person has come forward, so that we can put an end to this and move on.
Let's just watch that one more time. Bless her.
We miss her. We miss her so much. And everything is tainted. Every memory of her is tainted because of what happened to her, that she was murdered, and her body dumped in the canal. And it's painful and hard. Every day it bleeds into everything that we do. We've lived with the consequences of this person's actions for 20 years, which is a life sentence for us. And
just thinking, how does this person, because it's been, I think it's like an anniversary again, so it's been on Crime Watch this morning. There's every now and again there's a resurge of interest or a new group of investigators take over, etc. So I'm sure the perpetrator of this terrible act sees that, sees these updates and things. How do they sleep at night? They've probably got their own families. Maybe they've got daughters her age now or older. How have they coped with all that? How do they? And I tell you, if you're watching, because these perpetrators quite often they do watch YouTube channels and things. Anything with the name of their victim on, they'll have a look at. And if you are watching, and you are the person that did this to Lindsay, what I would say to you is, if you don't care about this life, think about the next life. You'll be getting on a bit now. You're not getting any younger, are you? So sooner or later, you'll get the final judgment, and you can help. You can't take away from what you did. You took Lindsay's life, and you're going to have to pay for that one way or another. But you can redeem yourself a little bit, by giving this family the peace that they deserve. And, you need to start thinking about that, because otherwise you've got long years of purgatory in front of you. I believe that 100%. Just because people get away with things in this life, please don't think you'll get away with it in the next life. So come forward.
It feels like that there's nothing will change. That this is how we have to live for the rest of our lives, not knowing what's happened, and for the killer to be walking free, whilst we every day live with the grief of what happened 20 years ago. You're filled with grief from the beginning, and it doesn't go away. It doesn't get easier, but we can't lose the grief and start remembering her with love until the person has come forward, so that we can put an end to this and move on.
Very eloquent. She speaks so eloquently. I was struck with that this morning. You'll see the Crime Watch video in a minute. She's a very, very eloquent lady. Her sister, very eloquent lady. Okay, I'm just going to put a couple of windows down that I've already looked at, and so I can get them out of the way, and they're not confusing me then as where I'm going next. Done that one. Done that. Okay. So the police clearly believe that Lindsay was killed by someone she knew, but there have been other. What we're going to look at now, or very briefly just go through some of the people that have been suspected of Lindsay's murder. Now, bear in mind, maybe none of these. Maybe someone completely different, but these are some of the theories that have been proposed over the years. So the first one that I'm going to talk about, perhaps the most A lot of people think it's the most feasible one. However, who know? We don't know, as I say. And this is the Honda man. So apparently police discovered that a red Honda Civic that was stolen in Meanwood near Leeds on the 6th of November had been spotted several times in Hebden Bridge, near where Lindsay was last seen. And again it was seen on the evening of the 12th of November. And it was supposed to be driven by a bearded male who was attempted to be traced, but I don't think they ever traced him. And it seems that this Honda man, as has been nicknamed, had tried to talk to a number of teenage girls in the town, including some of Lindsay's school friends. And he had been spotted near the spa shop, apparently. Anyway, 10 days after Lindsay's disappearance, this car, this red Honda Civic, was found abandoned in Sheffield. So there are some people who believe that this man, the bearded man in the red Honda Civic, had a role to play in Lindsay's death. So if you know anything about this red Honda Civic, stolen in Meanwood near Leeds, driven by a bearded man, please get in touch with the police. Another suspect, or possible suspect, funnily enough, I was watching a true crime video about this guy, John Taylor. He was convicted of the murder of Leanne Tiernan. She was murdered in November 2000. And also he was convicted of a series of RAPs, S's. He's a horrible, horrible man. You know, what he did to Leanne. He's also an animal abuser. You know, there were many, many dogs found buried in his garden. And he's a suspect in a number of other murders in that same area. However, no evidence has ever come up to link him to a murder, so he's in prison. Then there's another guy, apparently, called John Oswin, who's from Halifax in West Yorkshire, and he's in prison with an indefinite life sentence. He pled guilty to 2 RAPs, 2 indecent assaults involving teenage girls. So at least one of those incidents happened along a canal. So this is something, I suppose, that has in common with Lindsay's case, that a canal was involved. And Hebden Bridge is only 9 miles away from Halifax, apparently. However, no links have been able to be established. Then there was this other guy, Tony King. He's often known as the Costa Killer, the Holloway Strangler, and you know, he was vaguely sort of mentioned, but the police have dismissed this as speculation. A totally outlandish, though, you know, who knows in this crazy world, and certainly in the world of sex assaults, etc., murders. Who knows? Anything's possible. Even Jimmy Savile's name has been brought into this. Because he apparently regularly stayed at a friend's caravan situated near where Lindsay lived with her father and brother for 2 years. Remember, they lived in a caravan? Apparently, Jimmy Savile regularly stayed near to that caravan. And also, he rented a garage in the town to park his Rolls Royce. So apparently, when Lindsay went missing, his whereabouts are unconfirmed and he was absent from the public eye, adding to the speculation of a link. But again, nothing has been established. No definite link has been established. It could just be one of those sort of, you know, rumours on the internet. Now, it occurred to me when I was reading that, he was never accused of killing anybody, was he, Jimmy Savile? You know, I'm not saying that what he did do wasn't enough. I'm not saying that makes him a better person. I'm just saying, as far as I know, he was never actually accused of murdering anybody, as far as I know. But maybe you out there will know that. Anybody, leave a comment if you've got anything to say about that. And then there was another guy who was Francisco Arce Montes. And he apparently killed a 13-year-old British schoolgirl, Caroline Dickinson, while she was asleep in a hostel in France, so miles away from this that happened with Lindsay. But it's claimed, whether it's true or not, I don't know, that he was working as a waiter in London in 1994, and he had visited York, and he was on a hunting trip in the West Yorkshire area on the date of Lindsay's disappearance. So, but having said that, this was said in a book that somebody wrote, a true crime author wrote, but there's been no evidence to back up the claims, and the guy who wrote the book refuses to name the police officer he says gave him the information. So it sounds a bit like a Mark Williams twonk type thing to me. Now, then there was another guy in 2017, a retired detective from Cleveland Police, claimed that Vince Robson, who was a man questioned in relation to the murders of Julie Hogg and Tina Bell, had links to the family and to the area, and he worked at the Trades Club, which of course was where Lindsay is supposed to, well, Lindsay did visit there, and her mum offered for her to have a stay and have a Coca-Cola with her and a friend. So he's supposed to be one of the last people to see her alive on the night she disappeared, and this particular detective apparently believes he should be a prime suspect. But the actual police, like this is a retired policeman, the actual police are not confirming or, not saying anything about that. And then the last suspect that I want to talk about is her own father. He was a suspect. Well, he wasn't a suspect from the police. He appeared in like an appeal shortly after Lindsay went missing. He was on the TV in an appeal, and his demeanour, now we've seen this many times, haven't we? His demeanour in the press conference or in the interview, it was a little bit strange. I'm going to show it you now. And that's the trouble, is we make assumptions about people when we see them being interviewed. Well, we can't help but do that, can we, really? I mean, we're only human beings. You see somebody being interviewed, if they're not behaving how you think they should behave, we make judgments, don't we, which we shouldn't do, but I do think it is human nature. So let's have a look at this interview that he gave. And again, tell me what you think in comments. Just find the video.
From one-to-one interviews. Mr. Rimer will be joining us, and he will be happy.
So this actually, it was a TV program about making TV programs. It wasn't, this has been sort of, it was an interview with Lindsay's dad, but it was actually, the purpose of this TV program wasn't about the, true crime or whatever. It was this particular episode. It was a series that used to be on. This particular episode was to show how interviews are set up, etc., things like that. And it just happened to be Lindsay's dad.
Mr. Rimer will be joining us, and he will be happy to do some one-to-one interviews. They're very traumatic for him. The family are absolutely devastated by all this. So if you can just bear with us and try and keep him as sympathetic as you can, we'll explain to him what to expect.
So it's a very old video, as you can see. It's not the best quality. The sound's not the best quality, but it'll give you an idea, because what happened was when Colin appeared in this video, a bit like when, this happens all the time, doesn't it? A bit like when Paul Ansell gave his interview on the banks of the river, to Sky News, and started smiling. This is what people said about this guy, that his affect, his demeanour was not right. But, the police have ruled him out as a suspect.
I'm not looking forward to the audio itself. Well, thanks for coming. If we go back to Monday evening, that's Monday the 7th, Lindsay went out to visit the Spar shop, which is a mini market, and that's in Crown Street at Hebden Bridge. And we've actually managed to recover the security video from the Spar shop. And indeed, on the video, we've had this prepared into stills, are shots of Lindsay. That's exactly as she looked the last time she was seen, because that is the last time she was seen. We spoke to lots of her friends, school colleagues and relatives, and we can find no reason for Lindsay to voluntarily disappear.
Yeah, it was fixed for about 2-ish. Yeah. We like hard news at the top, at least 2 items, top stories of the day, which the whole region will see. Then we go into the ops with more localised news.
Can you hold the line, please? We're trying to get hold of Ray Falconer.
We have 3 different transmitters, Emley serving most of Yorkshire, Belmont serving Humberside and Lincolnshire, and Sheffield, which is really a city TV station with a bit of Chesterfield and Rotherham thrown in. We committed to doing 10 minutes a night on average of ops.
The reopening of murder inquiry in Bradford. I'm trying to find something to do that. What's the...
These old computers, well, I don't know if they're even, I'm not sure what they are, but yeah, all those old, brings back memories.
On this European football thing?
If you wouldn't mind just coming in. Well, are you willing to do 2 or would
I prefer to do just 1.
Right.
Do you want me again? Photograph.
I've only got the direct number for this side. All right, what's going to all right, thank you very much. And we'll
Yes, we both can ask questions.
yeah. Well, no, if you want to do it, you can, yeah.
I think one might.
He does sort of act in what you might think is an unusual way, but what is a usual way? I think that's what I've come to realise about these things is, we always think, oh, they're not acting as they should, but how should they? And everybody's different. That's the thing is, it may be they're not acting how we think we would act, but we don't even know how we would act actually until it happens to us. And God forbid that ever should. We hope it doesn't. But also everybody's got different personality, different way of dealing with things. This guy to me looks a little bit like he can't believe he's there, like what's happening.
Okay, because we do that having in the eyeliner. A few other nights. Yeah.
Mr. Rimer, we've heard Lindsay describe a conscientious, reliable, capable, a good student. How out of character is it for her to just take off like this, to just disappear?
Totally out of character. It's a complete surprise to us. We know her over a long period of time. This is totally out of character with her.
Obviously, your wife too upset to be here today, the whole family devastated. How are you managing to cope?
It's not easy at all when you lose a child for whatever reason. It's very hard.
Now, you're very keen, obviously, for Lindsay to get in touch.
Now, unfortunately, because you can't find I couldn't find the actual interview as an interview point of view. you know, this is the video showing the woman interviewing him, if you like. So unfortunately, they keep showing her face, and we don't want to see her face, no offence. We want to see the father's face, don't we?
Come home. What would you say to her if she's listening to these podcasts?
I would say, Lindsay, we want you home. Me and Jess and all the family want you home. We do.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, there's definitely a longer.
Thanks very much.
There's a longer interview than that somewhere, but I don't know where it is now. But yeah, he was, you know, maybe just can't believe what's happening. So this is just about the report. And no offence, it's not that, you know, I'm sure she's a very interesting person, but it's not the topic of this video. So then, although this is an old case, it is not a cold case. So just this morning, if you're watching this video on the day I put it out on the 18th of October 2024, it was actually highlighted on Crime Watch. And I recorded it, and we're going to have a look at that early this morning on BBC. Hope they don't do me for copyright, but I recorded it on my phone to try and avoid that. Anyway, let me just find it first. Oh, I know where it is. Yes. And her sisters and a detective were on talking on Crime Watch, and that's what we're going to watch. And again, sister's very eloquent. You know, the way she talks is very, very eloquent, I think. So this is the first time I'd heard about these people who'd got off the bus and said they saw her. So why was she stood at that entrance, you know, instead of walking home? Had she arranged to meet somebody there? I don't think she will have had a mobile phone or whatever, but yeah, what they said stood there, didn't they? So that's interesting. So maybe she did, you know, why was she, and where is the box of cornflakes? I mean, that might sound silly, but you know, she had a box of cornflakes with her, didn't she? So unless the person who did it took it with them or whatever, but I suppose, you know, it's too late now to think. But I mean, I'm talking about at the time, you know, would they have discarded that box of cornflakes somewhere? It would have been a full box. So yeah, it looks like it was never found, unless it was and the police just haven't divulged that. I think it's always good when a new team takes over, isn't it? Because they've got a new enthusiasm. You know, the old team, and no disrespect to the old teams, they've probably tried really hard, been through as many things as they can, done what they can, and then in the end it probably gets, well, people retire or leave or go on to other jobs. But also it must get quite dispiriting. But when you get a new team in, they're looking at it with fresh eyes. And as they always say, you know, people's loyalties change over years. People who might have been frightened to come forward years ago might come forward now. So there's never you should never feel that a case is completely never going to be solved. Could still be solved. It's very interesting that I'd never really thought of that before. In any unsolved case, the probation officers out there, or the even doctors out there, you know, counsellors out there, anybody who over the years may have had somebody come into their remit for whatever reason, and you may have had a little doubt about them. Maybe they brought up Lindsay Rimer's case and you're thinking, why they talk about Lindsay Rimer? You know, or maybe you just had a suspicion. But of course, you know, through patient confidentiality, you know, mental health worker or something like that, you've not been able to say anything. But maybe things have changed now. You know, maybe there's reasons now where perhaps you can say something, you know, whatever they are. So I think this is really good what this detective, he comes over as being very effective to me. Exactly. You do have a moral obligation. Nobody can make you come forward, but morally, for your own, save yourself, save your own soul. If you don't, if you couldn't give a toss about this family, or you couldn't give a toss about Lindsay, think about yourself. If you are a psycho or a narc, you'll be thinking about yourself. Think about your legacy. Think about where you're going to in the next world without putting this poor family out of their misery. You think that doesn't matter? Are you 100% certain? That's what I'd say to you. If you are a bit of a sociopath or whatever, and you don't, for that reason, you don't care because you don't feel empathy towards this family, and you think maybe there isn't a God, and once you die you don't have to pay for what you do in this life. Are you 100% certain that you don't? Maybe you think you don't, but are you 100% certain? Now, I'll freely admit I'm not 100% certain that you do, but I'm 99.9% certain for various reasons, various experiences. But I'm not 100%. So are you 100% certain that you won't have to face this? And will it be worse if you can make it a bit better for yourself, even if you don't care about anybody else? You do have them. And if you don't care about morals, just think about you. Yeah. So I'm always just, humbled by these families and how dignified they are, and they come on and talk about, the loss of their loved one, and they're so eloquent, so dignified, and it's you just think, oh gosh, it's amazing. They're amazing people that they can do that and be so calm and dignified, etc. Even though inside they must be screaming, come on you twonk, tell us what happened. So what they were talking about there, Facebook, they're on Facebook. I'm going to just show you the Facebook page. It's called Lindsay Rimer, Hebden Bridge, 1994. They've got over 1,000 followers. That's the update that they were saying. They were going to, about the Crime Watch, 40 years of Crime Watch. There's going to be on the Saturday, the 26th of October, there's going to be a community gathering to remember Lindsay and hope for more information. So 30-year anniversary. Sad, isn't it? So sad. Oh, look, here, I'll message you directly. I'm a drone pilot and I'd love to get involved. It does these things. Oh, there's another picture of Lindsay. These things, they do bring out the best in people, as well as obviously it's the worst of people that have done this. But it does bring out the best in people, people who want to help, etc. And people have been coming forward who went to school with Lindsay, and sharing memories of her, etc. And that must be a real comfort to her family. So, So let me know what you think. What do you think happened to Lindsay after she bought her cornflakes for the morning? Disappeared into fresh air, more or less, didn't she? Just disappeared into the night. And then but it looks like, as I say, only to be found 5 months later, cruelly taken from the world. robbed of her future, 13-year-old girl, never to get married, never to have children, never to do all of the things that people sort of take for granted, go to university. She wanted to go to university. She had it all taken away from her. And who took it away from her? That's the question. That's what her family want an answer to. So, do you think justice will ever be served? Personally, I think, if not in this life, it certainly will be in the next. So, I'm going to light a candle for Lindsay, if I can find my lighter yet. Today's candle is for Lindsay and her family, of course, particularly her sisters who were there making the appeal. I don't know if her mum and dad are still together or what's happening there, but I hope they get answers. So if you know anything, or you think you know someone who knows something or anything, as I always say, it doesn't matter how small it seems, and you might think, oh no, that's nothing. But you know what? It might be just the thing. So it's always worth contacting the police, especially at the moment when they're having this sort of anniversary drive, if you like, so they'll be concentrating on this case and after the Crime Watch appeal, etc. Okay, so thank you so much for watching as always, and thank you for caring, not only about Lindsay, but about all these missing or murdered girls, or men or women, children. We have to keep their keep their memory alive, and we have to be their voice because they don't have a voice. It's been taken away from them. So, as it says, thanks all for watching, liking, subscribing. Please don't forget to leave your fingerprint on the like button. It's free. And if you want to see more videos like this virtually every day, certainly every couple of days, please subscribe. I want to say a special thank you to those of you who've become members, to those of you who gift memberships, people who have bought me a Ko-fi or sent super stickers. It keeps this channel going. So thank you so much. And I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God always go with you. And prayers for Lindsay and her family. Bye.